Hello, this is Scott Montgomery of the Small Town Mercer. I'm going to be doing a two-part series here on financing. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to do financing in the fiat world, and then I'm going to do financing in the crypto world. Now, financing in the crypto world is going to be a little bit different, but that's because the emphasis on the product or the emphasis on the asset is different. Now, let me explain what that means. So, when you're talking about financing, you're generally thinking in terms of dollars and in terms of, getting dollars to as many individuals as you can living in your society so that they can exchange those for the goods and services they need. But there's never any talk about how to acquire assets, valuable assets, and how to use valuable assets to maintain your wealth. So my first part, this particular video will go into how normally our society regards that type of solution to the problem that I'm going to present. In the next video, I'm going to present to you the correct way to think about financing those types of situations. All right. So here, I'm going to start with the fiat currency world, which is virtually the entire world. That's literally about 100% of the world right now. Now, when I say the cryptocurrency world, we're not there yet. We don't go to the store and pay with cryptocurrency. You're starting to see that show up at occasional places, but that's not generally how you're going to pay for your goods right now. So right now, that's just a speculative asset. It's becoming more of a tangible, valued asset, and I think at some point it will be, in regards to Bitcoin, the most valuable asset that you can think of. So I decided to do a case study, and I picked Baltimore, Maryland, because I think it perfectly illustrates what I'm going to talk about. So I'm just going to go over some basic numbers now, and then I'm going to get further into detail. So the population of Baltimore, Maryland is 200, in the year 2010, this was 620,000 people. Okay. In the year 2020, it's estimated to be slightly above 570,000 people. So is that a negative drop? No, it's as a positive or negative drop. It's a negative drop. Okay, household income is about 78,000 per year, and how does that compare? And this is household, a whole household. We're talking minimum of four people live on 78,000 a year. Okay, so that type of income for a family of four is considered equivalent to a family of four living in small towns near me. I live in Western Maryland and West Virginia, and the generally towns around here are between 5,000 and 15,000 people, and we'll say 15 below 15,000 population. That's what this P is, and generally families in a lot of these towns. Um, they work either in a factory. There's a few of them around, or in the oil fields or in the coal mines. Generally, you have one person working, and the spouse stays at home and takes care of the children. And so the difference is, those people make around 80 some odd thousand a year. And the difference is what? The difference is when you're living in West Virginia or Western Maryland, you have a low population and not a lot of big cities. Hagerstown is the biggest city around here, and you're talking 45, 50,000 people, maybe 70,000 people in the whole metro area. I don't know. That's being generous. Um, so, and then of course you have Martinsburg is And West Virginia is a fairly large town too. Charlestown's another one. But you're not talking more than most towns around here, 15, 20,000 people, and I would say more than 50% of the people live in those towns. And so you're not going to get a huge cost of living. Um, Most of those people make money living in those towns. They're profitable from year to year, and they live a very conservative lifestyle. So they're not out partying and drinking all the time. That's why they're boring. I guess that's why they marry and start a family, and that's their joy and pleasure. And so it's a more conservative way of life. And so they're fine with that. But if you're making the same kind of money in Baltimore as you do out here for a family of four, that's a bit problematic, is it not? Um, I mean, it could be. I think it is because you're talking about a city. But you're talking about a city that wasn't the city it once was. So, you know, um, it's hard to live in a city making that income. And what you find in Baltimore is about 79% of the people live above the poverty line, and 21% live below the poverty line. And again, I would consider that a negative. You want it to be, for a big city anywhere in the world, even the best European cities, the best American cities, you don't want that. You want that number between 5 and 10%, and the closer to 5%, the better, because then you're dealing with a very small portion of the population that could get services and get help. And a lot of those people, I would say, at least half of them are temporarily in that situation. I think maybe others have more problems, more issues, maybe with drugs or alcohol, but some of those people do not. So temporary help is fine. They could use that. So, but that's what you want. When you get above 20%, now you have a chronic problem, and programs and temporary assistance or even some sort of form of permanent assistance is not going to even, you can help 5 to 10% of people, but 20 to 25%, there are people there that probably will not be able to get out of that. And the other thing I would say about that is that I don't know if there are many options for them, because I'm going to present more data here in just a second that's going to show you why that may be the case. All right. So let me erase this. See if I can make it a clean erase job here. There's a couple other stats I want to put up. I forgot to cover the housing. What I was going to say was the other stat that I had on the board that I just forgot to cover, I'm sorry, is that housing, there's about 51,000 out of 273,000 houses that are unoccupied. They're abandoned houses in Baltimore. That's a large percentage of houses. But there's some other housing stats I want to go over. And what I also had on the board just now, and I should have left it, and I forgot, I'm sorry, but about $188,000 is what the average house in Baltimore costs. And you're talking about $1,150 a month. And yet, less than 50% of the population owns a house. $188,000 is not one of the higher premiums you're going to find for real estate in the United States. And $1,150 per month, either mortgage or rent, or sometimes below that, is not a very high premium for buying a house or renting a nice house, is it? In a major city, no, it's not. But there are other issues with the housing. So, And I'm going to get to that 273,000 houses. Here's another problem. Um, and that is that out of that 273,000, you're talking about, where's the number? 27,000. 27,000 were built after 1990. That means what? You've got about, let's see, 246, I think. 246,000 houses were built prior to 1990. So houses that are more than 31 years old generally are not the most efficient houses anymore. Not only that, but get this, 44% of all houses in Baltimore were built before World War II. World War II. Almost half the houses in Baltimore were built before World War II. When you have a thriving city, construction generally replaces a lot of that, right? I mean, you take any major city and you look at the housing, the houses are either, if they're of a vintage, like San Francisco, let's say, or other cities, Chicago. You have a lot of neighborhoods that are, Los Angeles is another one. They're preserved, they reclaim those houses and, refurbish them and keep them new and rebuild them so that they're repainted. Even some of the vintage houses that are over 100 years old, like my house here is 230 years old. And it was built in the 1700s, and it took a lot of money to refurbish this house. And I've got a barn outside too. So, you keep this up, but in Baltimore, you rarely see that. And it's true for other cities, other cities that are more depressed have that same plight. But in Baltimore, remember, you have 51,000 houses that are unoccupied. And that's about a quarter, a little less than a quarter of all houses. Well, what is that? About 20% of all houses in Baltimore are unoccupied. And that's a problem. And when 44% of your houses were built before World War II, we're talking houses that people still live in that are basically tract homes. They were built between 1910 and 1940. Okay, those are not Victorian beautiful houses. Those are row houses, inner city houses, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom houses. A lot of them 3-bedroom, maybe two bathroom, and in the late 40s, early 50s, there's a lot of those, and those are more on the outskirts of Baltimore. So, that's a problem. There's not a lot of new economic development there. There are other issues too. And this is a big one. This is a big glaring. Do you know that there are, how many? Let's see. Let me get the number. 217,000 white-collar jobs in Baltimore. There are 45,000 blue-collar jobs. In Baltimore. Okay? Baltimore used to be a factory town. Used to be back, let's say World War II, you'd say about 75 to 80% of the town was factory jobs, blue collar factories. They built ships there, especially during World War II. The petroleum industry was heavy there. You had auto manufacturing plants, appliance manufacturing plants. Um, I think they even had coffee house, import coffee like San Francisco used to have. What else was there? Raw materials, lumber, bricks, things like that. Um, some food processing was there. Those are largely gone now. I think the university, the hospital system, Johns Hopkins, that is, and some others, and the banking industry have taken over the downtown. They still have a port there, but it's largely bringing in products that are warehoused over there. You still have some factories, just outside of Baltimore. Under Armour is there. I think they still make shoes and clothing items there. I'm not sure. But, a lot of that has gone away. So, and to combine this problem, I just want you to realize that's about 83% versus 17% of the jobs. And I just want you to know that the education and I have that down here somewhere. Oh, I have the numbers here somewhere. Where is it? Oh, here it is. I kind of wrote them in a very small. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to put a basic category up. 117,000 people have a high school diploma or less. And out of that number, 52% of this number drops out of high school, dropouts. So out of 117,000, 52% of them are dropouts. And the other 48% finish high school. And that's it. Okay. The other problem is that you have 18% of the residents graduate college. So we'll say 1 in 5. So you've got a population of 570,000, and a lot of those are adults. So 52% of them are going to drop out of high school. Another 30 some odd percent are going to get a high school diploma, and that's it. And 18% are going to graduate college, and 0%, not even 1%, less than 1%, because there are some, less than 1% pursue a degree beyond a bachelor's degree. Therefore, a master's or a PhD. And what did I say the largest employer was over there? Johns Hopkins and the banking system or state government type of stuff. Do you get to be a doctor at a hospital with a high school degree or with a bachelor's degree? No. When you have 82% of your population that is unqualified to get 83% of the jobs, that's a problem. And therefore, the people who are probably working in Baltimore are probably not living necessarily in Baltimore, maybe close to Baltimore, but not in Baltimore. And that's a problem. When you go to Washington, D.C., for instance, I know that's a federal government city, and a lot of people work for the federal government, but you're not going to see 52% of the population of Washington, D.C. dropping out of high school. And therefore, 82% of the people in Baltimore are qualified to get 17% of the jobs. So that's kind of a problem. So you're thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a lot of political programs that have been in place there. And yeah, there has been. So since the 1950s. And so if that's the case, then they poured money into education, they poured money into government housing, they poured money into re-education programs, so forth and so on. Taxes are high there. Ugh, I keep forgetting to turn off my phone. Sorry, dummy. Me, the dummy. All right, sorry about that. So that's a real problem. And so you've had these political solutions, and the political solutions, all it's done is it's kept the situation the same, and the population is dwindling. And so you don't see a lot of reinvestment into Baltimore. And so if you don't see a lot of reinvestment into Baltimore, then how's this situation going to rectify itself? And therefore, there has to be some creative financing done there, right? Yeah, because remember, there are two principles that you need to keep in mind. Number one is for real wealth creation. And what do I mean by real wealth creation? It has to be sustainable. I'm running out of room over there. Sustainable. Trust me, that says sustainable. Okay, number one, for that to happen, you have to have some permanent I'm thinking and trying to spell at the same time, and I think I'm failing at both. Permanent habit. And that habit has to be discipline. All right? That habit has to be discipline. And discipline in what? Discipline in acquiring. Is it money? No. Assets. What's an asset? An asset is something more valuable than just a small amount of money. If you have $5,000 in the bank, you cannot consider yourself wealthy. You have to consider yourself, I have smaller tools and I need to build up towards bigger tools. So therefore, you have to, the credit card. No. New cars. No. New appliances. Only if they're affordable. Only the affordable ones. So no, you have to put away that. You have to make your clothes last. You have to cook your food. Things like that. Okay? So that's number one. Number one is you have to be able to acquire more valuable assets. So is it worth buying a house in Baltimore? Well, if you take care of it and the people around you take care of it and make it a safe place so that people that live there are safe and they're not going to be subject to violent or lewd behavior or noisy behavior or immature behavior, but it's going to be safe and it's going to be kept up and people are going to take pride and they're going to seek employment, then yes. Okay, that's one thing. And I bet a lot of people are thinking that I'm going to say something about taxes, and I'm not. Taxes are immaterial. And I know that's a huge statement, but taxes are immaterial. You know why taxes are immaterial? Because the population that lives here obviously is not making enough money to pay a lot of taxes. So what they need to do is they need to save their money when you're in a situation like that. Beautify your property, make it more valuable, and then acquire it, and then buy it, And then once you buy it, then you can be a stakeholder. And that's the problem with people in Baltimore. They're not stakeholders. You have to become a stakeholder. So what is a stakeholder? Well, it's very easy. It's very simple. A stakeholder is simply a person who has money invested in the community and wants it to improve. Okay? So what you do when you're a stakeholder is you don't rent property, live in a situation where you don't take any pride in anything you have. In other words, you walk around with the latest sneakers and the latest cell phone, but your maybe a fancy car, but your house looks like one of my neighbor's dog houses or something. But you have cable, TV or whatever, or fancy Bose stereo speakers, or plug it into your ears, right? That kind of stuff. Those things are not value. Those things are not assets. Those things are depreciating. Okay? You buy the fanciest, oh, so and so Joe Cool quarterback for the, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco Hotshots. He wears these bud speakers that stick out of his ear and look like Martian antennas. They're the coolest thing ever. Great. 3 years from now, are they going to be the coolest thing ever? No. Are any athletes going to be using that product in 3 years? Yeah, maybe the 40-year-old guy hanging on at the end of his career, maybe, but nobody else. So those things are not going to have more value. Okay? So when you beautify your property and you own it, that will have value. And then you become a stakeholder. And what that means is now you get politicians who come up with these ideas like, oh, yeah, the wealthy need to pay 92% taxes. Well, you don't vote for that guy because you don't need the wealthy to pay for all your bills so that you can go out and buy the latest earphones and stuff, right? You're a stakeholder now. So you want to pay for more of your stuff because you own it and you want to beautify it and you want to make it more valuable. And when you do make it more valuable, guess what? I want to move my business there because the cost is obviously not as high there. We've already established that. The average house is $188,000. Therefore, the average commercial real estate where I want to put my business is going to be lower than it is in some place like San Jose, California, where the average house is $1 million. And I can get that same house for $200,000 in Baltimore. Yeah. And I've got a population that's not very educated. So if I can put some grants and some education money in there, guess what? They'll appreciate that because now I see people over there starting to improve their housing and they're starting to become stakeholders and they're starting to become serious about reinvigorating their city. But if you have virtually no construction going on there except maybe for a few downtown projects around the waterfront that generates some tourism dollars and a few businesses in and around there, and then you leave the city and you're in, oh my God, this looks like the end of World War II in Europe, the rest of the city. That's going to be a problem. And since there's not much investment going on there, you don't see a lot of people taking ownership. More people don't own than own. And even with relatively lower prices, as I can see. So these are the solutions. And so in the next video, I'm going to get more into cryptocurrency and more into proper financing. So thank you very much. Have a good day. This has been Scott Montgomery of the Small Town Mercer. We'll see you next time.